Conen Part 11. Words are important. Before I get started, let me apologize for taking so long to get this out. My health has not been totally up to par. The cancer's still shrinking, but I had a couple mishaps that seemed like it set me back for a little bit. Let's get started. Let's do something totally different this time. This one will also include more legal definitions from Black's Law 4th edition. But let's have some fun first. This first part is based on truth and how I see it. I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I enjoyed writing it. It is based on two popular sayings. See if you are familiar with them. You can't handle the truth, and the truth will set you free. If the truth will set you free, but at the same time you can't handle the truth, then how can anyone ever become free? At what point can someone handle the truth, and who decides when that is? First and foremost, let's agree, both of these sayings are opinions. If you tell me I can't handle the truth, it is your opinion. You cannot prove that I can or cannot handle that truth without first telling me that truth. Most, if not all of us, have been hearing these sayings for as long as we have been alive, and most have never taken the time to think about what they really mean. Both seem simple enough to understand, and most of us probably do understand them in their simplistic meanings. Before we get any further into this, let's agree on what the word truth means. Truth, put as simple as possible, is that which is correct and or factual and or provable. Once we understand that they are opinions, first we can begin the process of questioning every time we hear them used. More importantly, we can ask them to prove their assertion that we cannot handle the truth by telling us the truth, or that the truth will set us free by sharing that truth, which will set us free. There is a truth that sets us free, but most fail to understand the importance of that freedom, and we will not go into it in this one, but perhaps later. Is it as simple as that? Yes and no. If you understand this, then you understand that one person's truth may not be another person's truth. One example that proves this would be a person who is colorblind. Let's say they cannot see the color red. There is no such color for them. Then their truth is different than a non-colored blind person. Both are the truth for how each see the color. Now for the fun part of this. Remember what we agreed truth means. Well, here are two truths. Both are correct, factual, and provable. Both are right in what they see. Neither is more true than the other. At this point, we should be able to agree that one individual's truth may not be another individual's truth. Let's take another fun step into this. Shake things up a little. We place two people in a room, one colorblind to red, and have them agree on what colors are being shown to them, and they cannot come out until finishing the task or job. They are in agreement until red comes up. What happens now? Here are the most probable outcomes. They argue relentlessly and nonstop because neither can handle the truth of the other and remain a captive in the room. 2, they argue for a while and then just stop communicating altogether and remain a captive of the room. 3, they argue for a while and finally reach a compromise, name the color, and that sets them free. Notice they were not told that they had to name the colors correctly. So for the sake of argument, let's point out that they finally realized that they were not told that the colors had to be correct. They just had to agree on the color. That realization is the truth that set them free. Yes, real life is more complicated than this in a simplistic scenario. It's meant to be simplistic because sometimes the best way to open someone's eyes is to keep things as simple as possible. The hope of this article is that it has opened your eyes a little more. Imagine what we could accomplish if we could work on finding common ground and actually come together instead of always wanting to prove someone wrong. Now let's get into some legal definitions from Black's Law. Some of the words will be repeats from other videos already posted as refreshers, but most will be new to you. Let's start with one that will require some going over to understand it properly, as I see it. You're welcome to leave comments on how you understand it, as it may help us all come to better understanding of it overall. Certificate of Incorporation. The instrument by which a private corporation is formed, under general statutes executed by several persons as incorporators and filled with some designated public office as evidence of corporate existence. This is properly distinguished from a charter, which is the direct legislative grant of corporate existence and powers to name individuals. Bond, a certificate or evidence of debt. Word bonds in statute held applicable to a single bond. As a verb, to place under the conditions of a bond, specifically to convert into a debt secured by bonds. To give bond for as duties on goods, to secure payment of duties by giving bond. Bonded, secured by bond. Bonded goods are those for the duties on which bonds are given. Simple bond. At common law, a bond without penalty. A bond for the payment of a definite sum of money to a named obligee on demand or on certain day. Conjecture, a slight degree of credence, arising from evidence too weak or too remote to cause belief. Supposition or surmise, the ideal of a fact suggested by another fact as a possible cause, concomitant or result. An ideal or notion founded on the probability without any demonstration of its truth, an ideal or surmise inducing a slight degree of belief founded upon some possible or perhaps probable fact of which there is no positive evidence. An explanation consistent with but not deducible as reasonable inference from known facts or conditions. In popular synonyms with guess. Also bringing together other circumstances as well as the result obtained. After careful consideration of this definition, I will from this point on see myself as a conjecture enthusiast and stop saying I see myself as a conspiracy enthusiast. The word conjecture removes the criminal act part of what I nay many of us are trying to do, that is regaining our rights and real freedom. True, conformable to fact, correct, exact, genuine, honest. In one sense, that only is true which is conformable to the actual state of things. In that sense, a statement is untrue which does not express things exactly as they are. But in another, broader sense of the word, true is often used as a synonym for honest, sincere, not fraudulent. Next, we'll look at theory as best we can. It will include Merriam-Webster's definition. Theory of case, facts on which the right of action is claimed to exist. The basis of liability or grounds of defense. Theory as a noun, a plausible or scientifically acceptable general principle or body of principles offered to explain phenomenon. 2a. A belief, policy, or procedure proposed or followed as a basis of action. 2b. An ideal or hypothetical set of facts, principles, or circumstances often used in the phrase in theory. 3a. A hypothesis assumed for the sake of the argument or investigation. 3b. Unproven assumption. Conjecture. 3c. A body of theorems presenting a concise systematic view of a subject, the general or abstract principles of a body of fact, a science or an art. 5. Abstract thought, speculation. 6. Analysis of a set of facts in their relation to one another. Also from Merriam-Webster. Theorist, noun, a person who theorizes. Theorize, verb, to form a theory. Speculate, to form a theory about, to propose as a theory. Speculative verb, 1a, to mediate on a ponder or to mediate on or ponder a subject. Reflect, 1b, to review something idly or casually, and often inconclusively, to be taken to be true on the basis of insufficient evidence. Theorize, to be curious or doubtful about. Wonder. Oh, excuse me. We could go much deeper on this one, but I think you have enough to see what it's getting at. No, I will no longer see myself as a conspiracy theorist. Back to Black's Law. Suffrage. A vote. The act of voting. The right or privilege of casting a vote at public elections. The last is the meaning of the term in such phrases as extension of suffrage, universal suffrage. Participation in suffrage is not a right, but is granted by the state on the consideration of what is most for the interest of the state. Sui juris, Latin, of his own right, possessing full social and civil rights, not under any legal disability or the power of another or guardianship, having the capacity to manage one's own affairs, not under legal disability to act for oneself. Suit, modern law, a generic term of comprehensive signification and applies to any proceeding by one person or persons against another or others in a court of justice in which the plaintiff pursues in such court the remedy which the law affords him for the redress of an injury or the enforcement of a right, whether at law or in equity. Conscientious objector, one who, by reason of religious training and belief, is conscientiously opposed to participation in war. One conscientiously opposed on religious grounds to participation in war need not be a member of a religious sect whose creed forbids participation in war to be entitled to be a classification as a conscientious objector. It is sufficient if he has a conscientious scruple against war in any form. Conscientious scruple, a conscientious scruple against taking an oath, serving as a juror in a capital case, doing military duty, or the like, is an objection or repugnance growing out of the fact that the person believes the thing demanded of him to be morally wrong, his conscience being the sole guide to his decision. It is thus distinguished from an objection on principle, which is dictated by the reason and judgment rather than the moral sense and may relate only to proprietary or expediency of the thing in question. Words, symbol indicating ideals and subject to contraction and expansion to meet the ideal sought to be expressed, but labels whose content and meaning are continually shifting by the times. As used in law, this term generally signifies the technical terms and phrases appropriate to particular instruments, or aptly fitted to the expression of a particular intention in legal instruments. Words of limitation. See limitation. Words of limitation in a conveyance or will, words which have the effect of making the duration of the estate are termed words of limitation. Thus, in a grant to A and his heirs, and the words his heirs are Words of limitation because they show that A is to take an estate in fee simple and do not give his heirs anything. Limitation, restriction or circumspection, settling an estate or property, a certain time allowed by a statute for litigation. The provisions of a state constitution are not a grant but a limitation of legislative power. Entity, a real being, existence. Individual, as a noun, this term denotes a single person, as distinguished from a group or class, and also very commonly a private or natural person, as distinguished from a partnership, corporation, or association. But it is said that this restrictive signification is not necessarily inherent in the word, and that it may in proper cases include artificial persons. As an adjective, individual means pertaining or belonging to, or characteristic of a single person, either in opposition to a firm, association, or corporation, or considered in his relation thereto. Inhabitant, one who resides actually and permanently in a given place, and has his domicile there. The words inhabitant, citizen, and resident, as employed in different constitutions to define the qualifications of electors, mean substantially that the same thing, and one is an inhabitant, resident, or citizen at the place where he has his domicile or home. But the terms resident and inhabitant has also been held not synonymous, the latter implying a more fixed and permanent abode than the former, and importing privileges and duties to which a mere resident would not be subject. Relating to municipal rights, powers, or duties, the word inhabitant is almost universally used as signifying precisely the same as domiciled. A corporation can be an inhabitant only in one state of its incorporation. Initiative, the power of the people to propose bills and laws and to enact or reject them at the polls, independent of legislative assembly. Joinder, joining or coupling together, uniting two or more constituents or elements in one uniting with another person in some legal step or proceeding. Union, concurrence. Joinder of action. This expression signifies the uniting of two or more demands or rights of action in one action, the statement of the one cause of the action in a declaration. Law of the land, due process of law. By the law of the land is most clearly intended the general law, which hears before it, condemns, which proceeds upon inquiry, and renders judgment only after trial. The meaning is that every citizen shall hold his life, liberty, and property and immunities under the protection of the general rules which govern society. Everything which may pass under the form of an enactment is not the law of the land. When first used in Magna Charta, the phrase probably meant the established law of the kingdom, in opposition to the civil or Roman law. It is now generally regarded as meaning general public laws, binding on all members of the community. It means due process of law warranted by the Constitution, by the common law adopted by the Constitution, or by statutes passed in pursuance of the Constitution. The principal distinction between the terms lawful and legal is that the former contemplates the substance of law, the latter the form of law. To say that an act is unlawful, that an act is lawful implies that it is authorized, sanctioned, or at any rate not forbidden by law. To say that it is legal implies that it is done or performed in accordance with the forms and usages of law, or in a technical manner. In this sense, illegal approaches the meaning of invalid. For example, a contract or will executed without the required formalities might be said to be invalid or legal or illegal, but could not be described as unlawful. Further, the word lawful more clearly implies the ethical content than does legal. The latter goes no further than to denote the compliance with the positive, technical, or formal rules, while the former usually imports a moral substance or ethical permissibility. A further distinction is that the word legal is used as a synonym of constructive, which lawful is not. Thus, illegal fraud is fraud implied or inferred by law, or made out by construction. Lawful fraud would be a contradiction in terms. Again, legal is used as an antithesis of equitable. Thus, we speak of legal assets, legal estate, etc., but not of lawful estates or lawful estate. But there are some connections in which the two words are used as exact equivalents. Thus, a lawful writ, warrant, or process is the same as a legal writ, warrant, or process. A lawful man, a free man, unattainted, and capable of bearing oath. Legius homo. Leg, leg, excuse me. Legalis homo, Latin. A lawful man, a person who stands rectus in curia. A person not outlawed, excommunicated, or infamous. It occurs in the phrase probi et legis homines. Good and lawful men are competent jurors. The legality designates the condition of such a man. I think this is a really good stopping point, as it has went further than I intended. But it was necessary in hopes of getting some key thoughts out. My greatest desire is that some of you are starting to see the bigger picture in all of this. With that said, I hope that some of who have watched the last several videos can see where this is all trying to go. May Father God, creator of all, bless each and every one of you. I hope this one has made you put on your thinking cap. Please leave comments if you think you have a better understanding of where this is going. But as always, there's much more to come. Also hope that these are getting interesting for all of you. I know that a lot of it is dry and not catchy. And again, I am not the best presenter, but at least I am willing to try. So as always, if you have found this to be beneficial in any way, then please visit and like both my YouTube and Rumble channels. As always, remember to share across all your social platforms, and most importantly with friends and family in other countries, as this is a global spiritual war. Blessings to all and much gratitude.